Dundee was once known for three things: jute, jam, and journalism. That was the label. That was the neat little phrase. But it leaves out the bigger story, because this city did something unusual. It went from textile mills and industrial smoke to comics, medical research design, and video games. One of the biggest entertainment franchises on earth has roots here. Grand Theft Auto did not begin in Los Angeles. It did not begin in New York. Its story begins partly in Dundee. And that is the real story of this city. Not just what Dundee made, but how Dundee kept remaking itself. Dundee is often reduced to a slogan: jute, jam, and journalism. 3 words, 3 industries. 3 hooks for a tourist sign. And to be fair, they matter. They explain a lot. Jute shaped the city's skyline. Jam helped carry its name around the world. Journalism made Dundee a publishing powerhouse. But slogans are dangerous. They make history too tidy. They turn a living city into a fridge magnet. Because Dundee's story is not just about 3 industries. It is about survival. It is about work. It is about poverty. It is about women carrying an industrial city on their backs. And it is about what happens when the old economy starts to die. Dundee did not simply move from mills to museums. It had to fight its way there. To understand Dundee, start with jute, a rough plant fibre. Useful, cheap, tough. It could be turned into sacks, rope, carpet, backing, and cloth. And in the 19th century, Dundee became one of the great jute cities of the world. The city had the docks. It had the mills. It had the machinery. And it had the labour. But behind the industrial pride was a harder truth. The jute mills were loud. They were dangerous. They were filled with dust and heat. Workers spent long hours beside machines that did not forgive mistakes. The air itself could damage them. Respiratory illness became part of the industry's human cost. And the workforce was not what many people imagine. This was not just a city of men in heavy industry. In Dundee's jute mills, women outnumbered men 3 to 1. That gave the city one of its old nicknames, She-Town. It sounds almost affectionate now, but it came from economic pressure. Women worked because families needed money. Children worked because poverty left little choice. And employers often preferred women and young workers because they could be paid less. So when people say Dundee was built on jute, that is only half the sentence. Dundee was built on jute labour. And much of that labour was female. This matters because it changes the way Dundee should be remembered. Industrial Scotland is often imagined through shipyards, coal mines, steelworks and heavy engineering. Male spaces, male bodies, male danger. But Dundee's industrial identity was different. The mill women became central to the city's character. They worked. They earned. They supported households. They shaped the streets, the politics, the noise, and the reputation of the place. For outsiders, that could look threatening. A city where women were visible in the workforce. A city where women had wages. A city where women were not tucked away neatly inside the home. That made Dundee unusual. It also made it difficult to romanticise, because this was not empowerment in the modern glossy sense. It was independence under pressure. It was strength produced by necessity. Dundee's story is full of that tension, pride and hardship, skill and exploitation, identity and survival. That is the city beneath the slogan. Then there is jam, or more accurately, marmalade. Dundee became linked with orange marmalade through the Keller name. The familiar story says a cargo of Seville oranges arrived unexpectedly and the city turned a problem into a product. The details are messier than the legend, but the wider point still matters. Dundee was a city of processing. It took raw materials from elsewhere and turned it into something sellable. Jute came in, goods went out. Fruit came in, preserves went out. Ideas came in, newspapers and comics went out. That brings us to journalism. Dundee became one of Scotland's great publishing cities. D.C. Thomson helped make the city famous far beyond the Tay. The Beano, the Dundee, our Wullie, the Broons. These were not just children's comics, they were cultural machinery. Week after week, Dundee sent characters, jokes, accents and attitudes into homes across Britain. That is important because it shows Dundee was never only an industrial city. It was also a storytelling city. It made sacks, it made marmalade, but it also made worlds. The problem with industrial cities is that their strength can become a trap. When one industry dominates, the city grows around it. The buildings, the jobs, the skills, the families, the routines. Everything connects back to the same machine. But machines age. Markets move. Cheaper production appears elsewhere. And eventually, the thing that built the city can no longer support it. That happened to Dundee. Jute declined. Factories closed. Work changed. And the city had to face the question every post-industrial place eventually faces. What are we now? That question is brutal, because it is not just economic, it is emotional. A city can lose jobs, but it can also lose its story. It can lose the thing people think it's for. Dundee's modern history is partly about answering that question. Not with one clean reinvention, but with several. Dundee's next chapter did not come from nowhere. It grew from older habits. Design, print, engineering, education, problem solving, making things, that is the thread. A jute mill and a video game studio look completely different. One smells of oil and fibre, the other smells of coffee and overheated computers. But both are about systems. Both are about process. Both are about turning raw material into something people use. In the old Dundee, the raw material was jute. In the newer Dundee, it could be code, images, stories, interfaces, ideas. That is why the city's creative turn makes more sense than it first appears. Dundee did not stop being a making city. It changed what it made. And this is where the story takes its strangest turn. Dundee became important to video game history. DMA design began in the city. That name may not mean much to everyone, but its work does. Lemmings became one of the great puzzle games of the early 1990s. Tiny characters, simple instructions, brilliant design. A game about guiding chaos, which feels oddly appropriate for Dundee's wider story. Then came Grand Theft Auto. Before it became a billion-dollar global franchise, before the giant open worlds, before the controversy, before the cinematic trailers and midnight launches, there was a Scottish studio. There was experimentation. There were rough ideas. There was design. And there was Dundee. That does not mean the whole GTA empire belongs only to Dundee. The story later moved, expanded and changed. But its roots matter, because they show something easy to miss. Dundee was not just trying to recover from industry, it was helping shape a new one. The city that once processed fibre was now helping process pixels. That is a wild historical sentence, but it's true. Today, Dundee's identity is broader again. It is linked with design, medical research, universities, digital industries, comics, culture, and the waterfront. The opening of V&A Dundee gave the city a new visual symbol. A building designed to say something, not just to visitors, but to Dundee itself. The message was clear. This city is not finished. The waterfront regeneration is part of that. A long attempt to reconnect the city with the river, to turn former industrial and transport spaces into public, cultural and commercial space. But reinvention is never clean. New buildings do not erase old poverty. Museums do not automatically fix inequality. Design status does not solve every problem, and that is what makes Dundee interesting. It is not a fairy tale city. It is not a simple comeback story. It is a place where the old and new sit beside each other. Mill buildings, student flats, comic history, game studios, empty lots, new galleries, working class memory, creative ambition. Dundee is not one thing. It is a palimpsest. A city written over itself, again and again. So what is Dundee? Is it the city of Jute? Yes. But not only that. Is it the city of jam? Yes. But not only that. Is it the city of journalism? Yes. But even that is too small. Dundee is a city of reinvention. It took fibre and made industry. It took print and made characters. It took code and helped make digital worlds. It took a damaged waterfront and tried to turn it into a new front door. That does not mean every reinvention worked perfectly. It does not mean that the city's problems disappeared. But it does mean Dundee deserves more than a slogan. Because the real story is not just jute, jam and journalism. The real story is how a Scottish city kept changing shape without ever fully losing the grit that made it. And that leaves one question. When people talk about Scotland's great cities, why is Dundee so often treated like a footnote? Because once you follow the thread, from jute mills to comics, from marmalade to medicine, from She-Town to Grand Theft Auto, Dundee starts to look less like a forgotten city and more like one of Scotland's most underestimated ones.